Here.
Miss Bernard,
Here.
Mr. Torres, Mr. Landsman,
Here.
Miss Namie Dyer,
Here.
Mr. Lindemeyer,
Here.
Mr. Kemp,
Here.
Dr. Taub,
Here.
Dr. Hans,
Here.
Miss Newman,
Here.
and I'll just try Mr. Torres one more time. I don't know if he's muted. Miss Summers.
Here. We slid over the pledge. Do we have a flag tonight?
Yeah, we do.
Okay, let's go there. At this point, would you join us in saying the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible,
Here.
with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The next item is the approval of the agenda. I have one change to note in section C, number 3, the story that section 3, number C, I had it reversed. The story that inspires hope. Our presenter was unable to attend tonight, so we hope to reschedule that very soon. It looked like a really important presentation. So if there are no other changes, is there a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
Guadalupe will make a motion.
Support.
Newman?
Yes.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you. Next item, public comment. Do we have anyone this evening?
Hi, Judy, it's Christine. No,
Hi,
we
Christine.
do not have any public comment, and I do just want to remind people there is a link on our website if you want to make public comment, and we would read it at the second offering. And also you can type public comment in the chat and it would be read at the same time.
Thank you for reminding us. We'll move on to a motion to approve and accept the items in the consent agenda.
I'll make that motion, Judy.
Thank you, Malakaya. Is there a second?
I will second it, Jonathan.
Thank you, Jonathan. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you. Now, on to the first item on our agenda this evening that is at long last and after much effort, finally here. And I want to thank Sarah and the search committee and many others, Edna, Blair, many others who have helped us reach this point in terms of discussing and approving the employment agreement to offer to Dana Lazenby to become our next CEO. So what I'd like to do is start with the motion to approve the CEO contract as presented and authorize the board chair to sign it once approved, and then go on to discussion. So I would like to turn at this point the discussion over to Sarah and the members of the selection committee to walk us through the process and the contract, please.
Thank you, Judy.
Sure.
Good evening, everyone. So I hope everyone was able to get a copy of the contract that I sent out over the weekend. And just to give you kind of a brief timeline of what's happened, the search committee has met on multiple occasions throughout, well, this started way back in February, March, I want to say, that we started coming together, and unfortunately with the pandemic, things kind of got slowed up a little bit, but we were able to, finally get to the contract negotiation components after we came to you all with our CEO candidate recommendation. And so in terms of the contract, I just want you all to know that it has been fully vetted by our legal team. So the search committee met to, discuss what components were included in the contract, and then it was sent to our legal team to vet. Went back and forth several times between, OCHN, between the search committee, ourselves, and Dana and her legal counsel. And then over the weekend, we were informed that the contract as presented to you all was agreeable to both parties. So I, want to thank the search committee team. Everyone put in a lot of time and effort to get to the point that we are today. I want to thank Judy. She and I spent numerous hours, on weekends, late nights, trying to get this tied up. And I'm not saying it is a complaint. I'm happy to work with everyone, but I want you to know the time and investment that did go into this, so that we could get something that we felt was well put together. So I will open it up to any of the other committee members if there's any discussion. I will echo Judy's praise, though, before I do that, to Edna and Anya, who are also very helpful throughout this process. And again, both of them spending numerous hours after work on the weekends, trying to help us through, knowing that we're not the HR professionals in this, and really help to guide us and provide us information. So we couldn't have done it without Judy, Edna, Anya, and the search committee. So thank you all. And if there's anyone else on the committee that wants to share any comments at this time, I will open it up.
Sarah,
Yes, Melkaya.
I was trying to give people space because it seems like I'm always yakking. This has been, I don't know how to characterize it. For me, it was a monumental task, I guess is the best way to put it. And I really, really want to give you, Sarah, kudos over and above. You took the reins of this and went with it. I don't know if I could have did it. You followed it through. It got really sticky at times, but you didn't waver. You kept us well informed. And I want you to know personally how much I appreciate the fact that you led this effort. We couldn't have done it without that persistence that you had. And I thank you personally for that, as well as Judy and the staff that was involved, Blair and everyone else. I'm hopeful that we've gotten to this point and that we can move forward with the new chapter in our lives as an organization. It kind of boggles my mind how long this actually took. You can't get the time back, but I've been thinking about what I wanted to say, and it was a lot of back and forth. It was a lot of conversation. One of the things that I liken this to is dating someone for the, you met someone across the room, they looked really good and you wanted to get in relationship with them. But then when you start getting to know people and, it just didn't turn out the way that I thought it was going to turn out. I thought it was going to be a smooth, easy sailing, and that was not the case. But I'm hopeful that despite the challenges that we faced as a committee and the challenges that Dana faced with the contract and with the process and the challenges that the staff faced, I'm hopeful that we'll come out of this a stronger organization. We'll have a good starting point to go into the new fiscal year. Is no disparagement against anyone that's already on board. But I think it's vitally important for us with the climate that we're in, that we are sensitive and not so quick to dismiss new ideas and new input. And wanted to cling to the way we've always done it and the way it's always been. Because it reminds me of the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. Going forward, I don't want to see us doing that. I want us to be successful in every aspect of this journey. I believe that we will, and I'm encouraged, and I hope that everyone is as well. And again, thank you, Sarah. You were amazing.
Thank you, Malkaya. This is the first night that I
Sarah,
can actually see
Are
hands
you able
up.
to
So
see hands?
I was just saying, this is the first time I have started to be able to see hands. So I see
Awesome.
Jonathan's hands up. So Jonathan.
Thank you. I just wanted to take a minute and thank you and Judy and Edna and Anya and our team with Malkaya, Steve, and with Pat. All the work that went into this, and of course with our consultant, with Blair, and what I hope to be our next CEO. This has been quite the journey, and I know that we've just begun. So I just want to say thank you all. It's been quite the experience. I would say that sometimes it was frustrating, but overall it was quite enlightening. And I'm so glad that I've had the chance to work with all of you in helping bring in Dana. So that's all.
Thank you. I see John Paul's hand is up. I'll come to you in just a minute. I just want to make sure I get through search committee first, if there was anyone else on search committee that wanted to speak, and then we'll go to John Paul.
Yeah, this is Steve. I agree with what everybody else has said. It's been a pleasure working with all of you, and I learned quite a bit also.
Thank you. Pat or
Dr. Guadalupe, this is Sheila. I got Mr. Kemp on the line, so he's hearing everybody's comments, but he's trying to log back in right now. He's having some issues, so he just wanted to let you know that he just can't speak right now.
Okay, I'll let John Paul.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, perfectly.
Okay. Yeah, earlier I was in at the beginning of the meeting, but for whatever reason, the Teams app on my phone wasn't picking up my audio. But I do want to thank everybody, the search committee, for all the good work that they did on this. This has been a long process. This goes, going back months. And I remember, when we first started looking at the applications, and then we brought in, a consultant to help us with the process. And we had COVID, we changed board members over. I mean, a lot has happened since the start of this. So thank you, everybody, especially our committee, our search committee, for your leadership. Sarah for taking this on, and Judy for all your hard work. And I'm happy. This is good work as a team, and I appreciate everything everybody's done on this board to get us to this point. Thank you.
Thank you. So I guess before we take it to a motion, is there any questions or clarifications in the contract that anyone has on any of the topics or components of the contract? I'm trying to make sure I'm seeing if there's any hands up, but from any of the board members, any questions? So I'm seeing none. I would like to make the motion then, Judy, to move forward with approval of this contract and allow you to sign the contract this evening.
Is there a second?
Second, Eric.
Thank you, Eric. Sheila, would you call the roll, please?
Yes. So I got Mr. Furman.
Yes.
Miss Bernard.
Yes.
Mr. Torres.
Yes.
Mr. Landsman.
Yes.
Miss Namie Dyer.
Yes.
Mr. Lindemeyer.
Yes.
I have Mr. Kemp on speakerphones, but I think he can hear, so I just want to make sure you can hear him. Mr. Kemp?
Yeah.
Could everybody hear that?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Dr. Todd?
Yes.
Dr. Hans?
Yes.
Miss Newman?
Yes.
Dr. Guadalupe?
Yes.
Miss Summers.
Yes. Thank you all for your support, and we look forward to taking our next steps into the future. I feel really positive about it, so I hope you all feel as encouraged as I do. I was going to save this piece of news for other business, but I think maybe this is a better spot. I've been in touch with Dana, and we have set up using the study session for July to be a virtual meet and greet with Dana and the board, where she can share her thoughts for the future and we can all get to know each other better. So I think that will get us started in right foot forward. Also, it looks as if August 12th, Wednesday, August 12th, will be Dana's official start date. Are there any questions about that?
Judy, can I make one comment before we move on?
Sure can.
I just, maybe it should have gone in other business too, but it kind of makes sense. I just want everyone to know that the search committee is continuing to meet to go over the goals. That's our next step. So I'm happy that we now have the signed contract and we can move forward. But just so folks do know, we will continue to work on getting the evaluation components that need to be taken care of within those first 30 days of Dana's hire. So we'll keep you updated as the process goes along, but we'll be meeting here in the next couple weeks. And I do see Dana on as a guest. I just want to welcome you, Dana. Excited to have you.
I echo that. We look forward to a great start. And the 30th of July for our meet and greet. We would have been so much nicer to do it in person, but I think this will be a good start for us anyway. Are there any other questions or comments regarding the contract before I move on the agenda? I'm going to take that as a no. And our next item is the COVID-19 update.
Okay, good evening, everybody. This is going to be fairly brief, which is very good news, is that we haven't had new issues related to COVID that we haven't already dealt with or been able to handle. The one piece of information I do have to update you on is that the $2 enhanced compensation that the department is funding with emergency funding is being extended through September. So that was announced by the department, and we should see the money actually come in September. So I'm hoping to bring you budget amendment number 2, I believe in August, and that will have the adjustment for that revenue and for that expense. So with nothing else new at this time, I can answer any questions you have. I have both Nicole and Diana available as well, should there be any additional questions, but that's it for the update.
Anya, I do have a quick question for you. It's Sarah. And I think it will align with this topic, but I heard that folks that are trying to apply for Medicaid right now that are also getting unemployment are getting denied Medicaid because of the extra $600 per week federal, I don't know what we call it, federal funding. Have there been a lot of folks that have come forward, or have you heard any issues with that, or people getting kicked off or anything like that?
So I have not heard that directly, but yeah, that definitely would be considered income and therefore could impact someone's ability to be eligible for Medicaid.
So do you think are we getting folks getting kicked off? I mean, I've heard of folks that are not getting approved because of it, but would that be impacting anything I know it's ending this week, but just.
So at the start of the pandemic, anyone that was on Medicaid or anyone that was on a spend down was not, the department changed it so they could not fall off, and also they would not have to meet their spend down every month once they met it the 1 month. So people shouldn't be getting kicked off. It could have an impact in people getting benefits, but that's really just about assets and income in particular. So I can see how that would become an issue, especially because that $600 a week is a big adjustment. So it's definitely impacting a lot of things besides just eligibility as far as talent pool for direct care staff and things like that. That's having a very large impact. Obviously a good thing in the short term, but is having bigger picture impacts on people.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, frustrating for them, I'm sure, as they're trying
Yeah.
to navigate, but, okay, thanks.
Judy, I had a comment, I guess it's a question. Anya, since that's the case, and we do have 2 CCBHCs in our network, should we be advising people if they don't qualify for Medicaid, they still would be able to access services through the CCBHCs?
So Nicole can correct me if I'm wrong, but typically if someone doesn't qualify for Medicaid, we would still refer them to community resources, which could include any of our providers that provide outpatient benefits that are outside of our service array.
Well, I guess what I'm thinking is more letting people, let it be known. If you're in this situation, I don't know if we want to post it on the website, put some information out in the media, some type of way to let people know if this is your situation, you still have access to care through community, through the CCBHCs or whatever, so that people don't just go away feeling like I don't have any outlets. I'm not sure what the process is. I'm sure, well, I hope that when someone is denied for Medicaid, they're not just turned away without resources, but still there's advocates, there's agencies that are assisting people with trying to get benefits or get the help that they need. They would need to know that information in order to help people. So I'm just thinking it's a good thing for us to put out, to let people know that there is resources available, and not just to tell people, well, you don't qualify for Medicaid, so there's no help for you.
So we can certainly add that to our discussion tomorrow morning. I would just want to reach out to those providers to make sure they're okay with that and prepped and able have the capacity to serve additional people. And then we can certainly look into that.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions for Anya? Comments? I just was wondering, is there any additional conversation about Open Meetings Act and virtual meetings?
Actually, Diana, do you want to speak to that? I believe you had the latest info on that one.
Yep, I knew that that was coming. So the governor did extend the emergency order last week, which then extended the executive order as well for virtual meetings.
Is there an end date?
No, so
I mean, moving end date.
It will always be moving because the executive order that allows the virtual meetings is tied to the emergency order. So she's only allowed to do, the emergency state of, the state of emergency. If she can only do that 30 days at a time, we will only be 30 days out.
So for the foreseeable future, we're
for
still
the foreseeable
in the same
future.
place.
Exactly.
Got it. Thank you.
You are welcome.
Other questions?
Judy, would it be helpful for us to let you and the board know when the emergency or the state of emergency is extended?
I think it would be just
Okay.
to make sure that we understand what our future looks like a little bit, since so many things are moving around.
Yes.
So if that were possible, that I think that would be helpful. It could be included in Anya's update.
Okay. Well, and what we found this time is that it was extended. It's usually only extended a few days before it expires. So I think it was set to expire like on Friday, and she extended it on Monday or Tuesday.
Okay, great. Well, we know for now anyway, and maybe we'll make that known more clearly as we go forward.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you. Other questions, comments? Okay, then I think we'll move on to the discussion about the proclamations for substance use disorders and suicide prevention. Emily?
Good evening. Can everybody hear me okay?
Can.
All right. So my name is Emily Springer, and I work with the communications team here at Oakland Community Health Network. Similarly to previous years, I'm bringing the board the proclamation for September being National Recovery Month. And this year, given the board's discussion from last year, I'm also bringing you the proclamation for September being National Suicide Prevention Month. So once these are approved by the board, they will be sent to all of the cities, villages, and townships in Oakland County. Once they're received, we're often asked to accept the proclamations from town hall meetings, and that usually happens throughout the month of September. So I think first I'm going to read the National Recovery Month for the board's approval, and then I'll read the National Suicide Prevention Month proclamation.
Sounds good.
All right. National Recovery Month, September of 2020. Whereas substance use recovery is important for individual well-being and vitality, as well as for families, communities, and businesses, and whereas, according to SAMHSA, the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, in 2018, approximately 20.3 million people, excuse me, aged 12 or older had a substance use disorder, and whereas we will continue to educate and raise awareness of the risks and potential harm associated with prescription drug misuse, and whereas we believe everyone facing substance use disorders deserve the benefit of recovery, and whereas stigma and stereotypes associated with substance use disorders often keep people from seeking treatment that can improve their quality of life, and whereas substance use disorders occur when the recurrent use of alcohol and/or drugs causes clinically or functionally significant impairment, such as health problems, disability, and failure to meet major responsibilities at work, school, or home. And whereas substance use disorder recovery is a journey of healing and transformation, enabling people to live in a community of their choice while striving to achieve his or her full potential. And whereas substance use disorder recovery benefits individuals with substance use disorders by focusing on their abilities to live, work, learn, and fully participate and contribute to our society, and also enriches the culture of our community. And now, therefore, be it resolved that Oakland Community Health Network hereby recognizes September of 2020 as National Recovery Month. OCHN calls upon our citizens, government agencies, public and private institutions, businesses, and schools to recommit our state to increasing awareness and understanding of substance use and the need for appropriate and accessible services to promote recovery.
Is there a motion to approve the proclamation for National Recovery Month?
I make a motion, this is Eric, to approve.
Thank you, Eric. Is there a second?
I would second that. This is John Paul.
Thank you, John Paul. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Well done. Okay.
All right, thank you. Now I will read the Suicide Prevention Month proclamation. Whereas September is known as National Suicide Prevention Month and is intended to help raise awareness surrounding suicide prevention resources available in the community, and whereas World Suicide Prevention Day is observed each year on September the 10th, and whereas suicidal thoughts can affect anyone, regardless of age, gender, race, orientation, income level, religion, or background, and whereas, according to the CDC, each year more than 48,000 people die by suicide, and whereas suicide is the second leading cause of death for people 10 to 34 years of age, the fourth leading cause among people 35 to 54 years of age, and the eighth leading cause among people 55 to 64 years of age, and whereas organizations like the National Alliance on Mental Illness and National Suicide Prevention Lifeline work to help individuals in crisis and provide resources to shed light on this highly stigmatized topic, and whereas every member of our community should understand that throughout life struggles, we all need the occasional reminder that we are all silently fighting for our own battles. And whereas Oakland Community Health Network is committed to being a zero suicide organization and cultivate a network of providers who are engaged in the zero suicide philosophy. Now, therefore, be it resolved that Oakland Community Health Network hereby recognizes September of 2020 as National Suicide Prevention Month. OCHN calls upon our citizens, government agencies, public and private institutions, businesses, and schools to recommit our state to increasing awareness and understanding of suicide prevention and the need for appropriate and accessible services to assist individuals in crisis.
Thank you. I should ask if there are any questions or comments before we approve, and that can go back to the National Recovery Month proclamation as well. I should have done that before.
That's okay.
John
I have
Paul?
yeah, my question. The suicide prevention month, isn't May though already a prevention month, or is that something different?
May is Mental Health Awareness Month.
Okay.
I can look into that for you though and report back. Usually we observe it in September, but there might be another recognition associated with National Suicide Month.
Okay, I was just wondering because it may be Mental Health Month, right, in May, and then this is prevention. And the other thing is that I know we mentioned that this goes to communities and such. Have we sent it over to school boards at all or school districts? I don't know that I've ever seen this in my school district, at least.
That is a good question. I can report back on that as well.
Okay, yeah, and if not, maybe we could do that because I think these are two very relevant topics that we deal with in schools, in school districts with kids.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, Eric?
I just wanted to ask, when it gets towards September, or in September, will you post these on the Facebook page so I can share them?
Sure, we can absolutely do that.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments on either proclamation? I'm going to take that as a no. Is there a motion to approve the proclamation recognizing September is National Suicide Prevention Month?
I'll make a motion. It's Eric.
Okay, Eric, is there a second?
I'll second that, John Paul.
Thank you, John Paul. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? All good. Thank you, Emily.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is an item for approval, and it is the presentation on the building build-out. Patrick?
Hello, good evening. I just wanted to give an update on the building build-out, and it's an approval item that's on the agenda for today. I'm seeking board approval for a capital project for the ASE build-out. That's the American Society of Employers. We entered into this agreement with Friedman Premier as our construction builder in order to build out the space for the American Society of Employers. And we're asking board approval upon this 8,200 square feet build out. It's a 7.5-year lease agreement. Move-in date projected to be October the 1st of 2020. The build out cost amount is $355,000. A discussion was held on July 13th at the committee of the whole, explaining the upcoming requests, and we're asking for the approval of the funding to build out this space. I did send an analysis of the break even to the board in your packet to tell you how when that break even will occur and what the payback schedule would be like, the rent schedule looked like. And so after the 35th month is when we'll break even, and then it's a 90-month lease, and that for the last 55 months, it'll be the payback will be paid off. The build out will be paid off. So we're asking for board approval on the $355,000 build out. I'm sure, I hope you all had the opportunity to look at the paybacks rent schedule and see what type of funding will be generated from this lease.
Jonathan, do you have a question?
No, I wanted to make that motion to approve the build out.
As presented.
As presented, yes.
Perfect. Okay. Is there a second for that?
I second it, Judy.
Okay, thank you, Pat. Are there any other questions for Patrick before we do our roll call vote? I'm not seeing any. Oh, did I miss something? Okay, Sheila, would you call the roll, please?
Miss Newman,
Yes. Yes.
Dr. Hans,
Yes.
Dr. Taub,
Yes.
Mr. Kemp,
Yes.
Mr. Lindemeyer,
Oh, his computer just went down. He just texted me. This is John Paul. So he's trying to get back in.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Miss Mamie Dyer,
Yes.
Mr. Landsman,
Yes.
Mr. Torres,
Yes.
Miss Bernard,
Yes.
Dr. Guadalupe,
Yes.
Mr. Furman,
Yes.
and Judy, do we want to wait for Mr. Lindemeyer or?
Can I ask him his vote via text, or is that appropriate?
Can he text Sheila?
I can ask him.
Let's give that a try. I mean,
Okay.
that's kind of the neutral third party.
And Miss Summers.
Yes.
Does he have your number, Sheila?
I'll text him real quick.
Okay.
I don't know about the rest of you. I've had a lot of internet challenges lately myself, so.
Mine just fell off the map there a minute ago.
Oh, I hear you.
And Sheila
I've had things I haven't seen in years.
Yeah, I totally just shut it all down and cranked it up and got reconnected, fortunately.
I've become really talented at rebooting myself.
Yeah.
Sheila, are we?
I'm just waiting for his reply.
I'm back in the meeting. This is Eric. I vote yes.
Okay. Thank you. That's even better, having your voice. Terrific. Motion carries, obviously, and then we can now move on to the May 2020 financials.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm back. So we have the May 2020 financials. You can go ahead and move to the next slide. I'm not entirely sure if it's Emily moving or if it's Christine or who's moving the slides today. So you can see revenue here. So this particular slide demonstrates that the May revenue, while lower than April, was still higher than the prior years. So if you all, I sure studied the financial statements that were sent to you. One of the things you see on the revenue information is that revenue looks to be under budget based on the budget this year. And that's primarily because what we did between last month and this month was to update to budget amendment number 1 numbers, which you all approved last month. And because that large chunk of money for that $2 increase for the direct care wage money came in June, you'll see that June, because you can already see the payment here, June was significantly higher, but that was to account for April, May, and June of that $2. So that's kind of why May looks a little low comparatively. We do expect that to level out a bit and continue to increase related to the eligibility trend. And then also, as I mentioned a little bit ago, we will get another payment in September for the remainder of the 2% or $2 direct care wage increase. So we will fund it throughout the remainder of the fiscal year, and we will get basically reimbursed at the end of the fiscal year for the remainder of that. But that's why May looks a little low, because we did update the budget numbers, and June looks a bit high because you can see June already was because we collected that revenue. Anybody have any questions on revenue before we move on? I know that was probably a little confusing. Nope. Okay, you can go ahead and move to the next slide. So this is the one where just shows you eligibles. As you all know, we are funded based on the number of people eligible in Oakland County, not the people we actually serve. So you've heard me talk about, since the pandemic kind of began, we've seen a pretty material increase in eligibles. And while those numbers don't look on that chart to have gone up quite that much, it's actually pretty significant. So we've seen our payment increase quite a bit from that. And starting back in, 2014, when Healthy Michigan started, we saw a decline in the number of eligibles that were connected with what they call the disabled, aged, and blind category. And that category is really our highest funding amount. It's just under $300 per member per month. And since the pandemic is the first time we've really seen that increase since that time. So you can see that blue section there continuing to increase over the months. And now we are also seeing, I apologize, DAB is actually the red one. It is actually increasing. It's a little hard to see on this particular chart, but the total of basically all of those different fund sources is increasing over the last few months, and we do expect that to continue for the remainder of the fiscal year. I'm pausing because I see Jonathan's hand up.
Thank you. I do have I don't know if it's a question or a comment. So it sounds like there are more people that are enrolling in Medicaid, and the state is actually taking the time to make sure they're not getting placed into TANF, but rather they're getting placed into DAB or the more appropriate classifications.
Well, so we've seen material increases in all of them. We've seen Healthy Michigan, TANF, and DAB increases. So I hope that that's the reason we're getting increases in the DAB categories, because they're appropriately placing them. However, we do have an incentive with our core providers this fiscal year to move anyone that is appropriate for the DAB eligibility or full Medicaid eligibility that was on Healthy Michigan, to move them over. So we have a pretty significant effort to try to move people over ourselves as well. So hopefully those two things combined end up being a material increase related to the DAB category, which is really more of a long-term sustainable fund source compared to the amount of Healthy Michigan, which is more along the lines of about $70 per member per month. Judy, I see another hand up.
Yeah, Rena?
Yeah, I'm just curious, do you think that the increase in eligibles has anything to do with, people either losing their jobs and therefore losing their current benefits, or even if it's like, they're furloughed, so they have fewer hours and lose eligibility? And do you foresee that having an effect in the coming months where that's going to shift as people become re-eligible for like private insurance and things like that?
So yes and no. So eligibility is very tied to the economy. When we see people, when we were seeing unemployment rates in well below 5%, our eligibility trends were pretty significantly down. Now with the unemployment rate and everything going up, we see that tend to increase. The thing about Medicaid is typically when you're approved for an entire year. Same for Healthy Michigan. It's not a monthly process. So at worst case scenario, people would get approved and then they would be eligible for the entire year unless they were to report a material change. So I guess it depends on if they were to report getting new benefits or how that kind of played out. But typically they're covered for an entire year. So we should see it for the foreseeable future at least.
Okay, good. So you don't really foresee any like really major negative impacts then?
Based on my experience in the what happened in 2008 when everything kind of crashed as well, things went up for a significant amount of time, and it took a long time for that to really start to downswing. I would say, honestly, it was 2014 when the implementation of Healthy Michigan happened. So it was really then that we started to see the real downturn. TANF is temporary assistance for needy families. That one we see a little more volatility in because it's intended to be a temporary resource. So we tend to see that one fluctuate more, but that payment for us is more like, I believe, around $26 to $30 per member per month. So you can see, DAB's kind of our money maker. That's where we actually get the majority of our money. So it's those that are most important to us, and those are really more an annual basis of reevaluation.
Okay, cool. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Anybody else before we move on?
Not seeing anything.
Okay, we can move on to assets. So what you can see here is this one is comparing to last fiscal year. And so you can see cash is up from last fiscal year. I apologize. I'm trying to move the bar here that doesn't want to move in my my screen so I can actually speak. There we go. It's actually the end of fiscal year 19. So you can see that based on the end of fiscal year, our cash and investments are up, our receivables are down, which is typical for this time of year. So when you're looking at the green being September 30th of 2019, that is the end of our fiscal year. So that would include all of the accruals and planned revenue that would come in after the fiscal year closes. But by the time we're to May of this fiscal year, we've collected a large chunk of that and have done many of our cost settlements and those types of things. So that's why you see that pretty material decrease in receivables. So other assets has changed just slightly. It's minimal basically all of the time. And then capital assets being things like our building and those types of more longer term assets, you can see has gone down slightly, but really what that is basically just depreciation over that time period because we have to recognize the depreciation in the asset. Any questions before I move on?
I see Malkaya has a question.
Anya, you probably told us before what goes into that other asset category. I just don't remember what that is.
I know the question's been asked and you think I would just have it in front of me, but I don't.
Okay.
So how about next month? I promise to have it in front of me because I don't remember all the. I'm going to guess it's things like furniture, equipment, bigger, so smaller, not capital assets, but other things like that actually have to be depreciated just because of their expected life. So.
Okay. Thank you. We'll keep asking till we get the.
Yes, please do. Or maybe
Pat. Pat, do you have a question?
Yeah. Just a thought. This is comparing to last fiscal year, right, Anya?
This is comparing to the end of last fiscal year. So it's comparing to September 30th compared to the snapshot of now. So not totally, I mean, last fiscal year, not the exact date last fiscal year, but 9/30 of last year.
So wouldn't it be better just to track it against the budget?
So that is personally my preference as the person who is attempting to manage this budget. That was a specific request that was added, and so that's why you have these comparison charts. For me, from an ongoing management perspective, I have to know things budget year to date versus the year to date budget because that's really how I know how we're doing.
Right. It just seems to me that would be a more better way to look at the performance of how we're doing if we just put it against how we do against our budget, what we anticipate.
So we're always open to making modification to this. I told Eddie this month that there were still some things I needed to see differently, even if they were just for my management of the budget, because I needed to look at some things a little differently. And you all know this was kind of a new format for this fiscal year. It's a little different than our old format. So I'm finding I still need some additional tweaks to it for my own personal use. So certainly if you all have preferences, we can still make adjustments to this.
Okay.
Jonathan?
Thank you. Anya, I think one of the reasons we had this is, I think I'm on mute. Okay.
No, you're not.
I'm not on mute. Good.
No.
Is we want to be able to look at both how are we doing in performance against budget, but also how are we doing in comparison to last year. So that's why we have year over year numbers as well. And I always found it challenging. Well, I like knowing how we're doing against budget. I know as a practice, we do budget amendments to re-flatten, unusual events that spread over a year. So I think if we showed year against budget and year over years, those would both help people with the different stories.
But just one comment, Jonathan. Yeah, I'm fine however we want to do it. I was just thinking, if we're going to do it, why don't we compare it to the same time period of last year?
Yes, that's what we normally would be doing on year over year. You know, same time, this month versus last year, same month, or quarter versus quarter, or YTD versus YTD. Absolutely.
Well, so my thought is this. Let me go back and talk to both Eddie and Patrick, because so my thought is something like assets and those types of things. Cash and investments makes sense to compare the prior year to date to current year to date. I'm not sure that this particular chart, the way it compares year end to the current point in time, is particularly useful. So I'm thinking that when we talk about comparing to prior year, that's really more about revenue or expenses in whole. It's not really specific to these individual items. Does that make sense? So maybe more like summary charts to see kind of from a revenue and expense perspective overarching. Would that make more sense to do? Or do you want me to kind of throw some things together with the accounting staff and kind of propose them, or what are your thoughts?
Well,
go ahead, Jonathan. Sorry.
I think that it makes sense to be able to look at even assets to see how are we doing this year versus last year, or our liabilities. Just because we've, you know, normally we're looking at were there dramatic changes in a particular year, or are things pretty stable? So that's why the year over year view is there, if you got my drift.
So we do have, I mean, you guys do get the actual financial statements, not just the graphs. So that information is all included in those. The question, I guess, for me is when we're doing this presentation is what's most useful from this perspective, because all of this information is currently in the actual financial statements, which are included in the board packet.
Right, and they are, and I look at those, of course. But I'm not sure this one. I did not realize this is full year of last year versus wherever we are in this year. Because
well,
I don't have a legend so on this.
Well, so this I want to just clarify from an asset perspective, it's a point in time. It's not cumulative when we look at these types of things. So it's a point in time snapshot of what are our assets? What were our assets at the beginning of the fiscal year, and what are our assets now? So just I don't want to mislead you to think that it's cumulative comparing an entire fiscal year to 8 months of a fiscal year. So it's really, this is just a snapshot point in time approach from when you look at assets. It's still both a point in time, just not, it doesn't really show you cumulatively two different lengths of time.
Well, then it probably does make sense if this is May 30th, the numbers, that it should be this May 30th versus last year at May. But again, I'm not even sure then that looking at our point in time for assets makes sense. So I would agree with you on that.
Okay, well, we can
now defer to Patrick, to Pat.
So I'm happy to work with Pat on kind of what we, if and what adjustments we make, and we can maybe throw some different things at you next month, and you guys can let us know what you think.
Yeah. That sounds like a good plan.
Okay. So moving on. So liabilities here, again, this is a point in time based on those two dates that were in the prior one. Of course, my thing is there it goes, September 30th and May 31st. So you can see our payables are down pretty significantly but again, it's that same thing at fiscal year end, we make all the accruals necessary that we're going to pay out for that fiscal year right at the end of the year if they're outstanding. So you're going to see those types of reductions now that we're this far into the year. Again, cost settlements and those types of things have been paid for the most part, outstanding debt to any providers. You can see due to states, a couple $100,000 off, not materially, but those are things like accrued state facility bills we haven't been billed for, and vice versa. But again, at fiscal year end, it looks like we had about a month or so outstanding. Maybe that's 2 months or so outstanding, and now it looks like a little more than that. Employee payables is very close to the same, as well as long-term debt. What you're seeing again is the long-term debt is the reduction in those bond payments. So we have bonds on both the Resource and Crisis Center and the group homes that we own. So what you're seeing there is the reduction in those. Those are the only two items we have any long-term debt on. Barring any questions, we can move on to the next one.
Not seeing anything.
Okay, so net position. You can see at September 30th, it was 82 million, and currently through May, we are at 76. You might ask, why is that? We're supposed to be doing better this year. So there's a couple of reasons for that. So don't panic is the first thing I want to say. Is that a couple things is one, that we adjusted the budget numbers to reflect the revenue we expect to get in June and the remainder of the fiscal year. And two, our expenses for May were a little higher than typical. So we had a couple of payments that were outside the norm in May, and that was related to the hospital rate adjuster that we pay quarterly, which was about $2.4 million. We paid out our second round of direct care wage payments. So for those people who don't have direct care wage built into their rates, we do pay it on 2 lump sums, I believe in January and in May. And so those went out in May as well. In addition to that, we had about a $500,000 increase in the hospital expense in May. So all of those things are contributing to the bottom line. But what you can see, so liabilities is slightly down by about $5 million. And that's again, just paying off some of those accrued liabilities and things like that. And the net position is actually gone up in total by about $333,000. So you'll again continue to see that getting to the good side of the line the remainder of the fiscal year. Based on the adjustments we made in budget amendment number 1 for the increased revenue and the fact that we actually collect the majority of that adjustment in June, you should see a good chunk of it next month, and we'll continue to see that get better for the remainder of the fiscal year. Again, if there are no questions, we can move on. So revenues, you can see this one is, so this one's a little different. You see this one is through May 31 of 2019 compared to the end of this May this year. So this one is a true year-over-year comparison, and you can see we do have a significantly more Medicaid revenue. That's to be expected with the rate adjustment we did receive, and the eligibility trend starting to creep up. You can see state general fund is roughly the same. And you can see county funds, which is just what is collected year to date between the county, what the county pays us, and I don't think PA2 is in there. I believe PA2 is in the all other. So those will eventually even out. It could be a slight timing issue there because the difference there looks to me about 1 month's worth of payment from the county. So I think actually, if I remember correctly, last fiscal year we did get 2 county payments in 1 particular month. So that's why I think that one actually varies a little bit. But those ones will even out because the money hasn't changed since we became an authority. And then all other you can see is slightly down, but that would include things like grants, which we have talked about. The revenue for grants has gone down just simply because some of the grants have expired. There are no questions. We can move on. Okay, so expenses now here you can see, again, this one is a true year over year. So you're looking at May 31 last year to this year. And you can see that administration is slightly down. and actually materially down again. That was that reclass. We talked about how things are organized just slightly differently than in the prior year's financials. You can see provider network expenses are up, which I believe we did get a question about last month, but provider expenses are really related to individual needs and the needs of the population being served. So we had some increase in needs of people served. We had an increase in the population being served. I know that there have been some significant increases in children's services, and we actually saw a higher utilization during COVID with adult services and those types of things. They actually saw about 1,000 more people. You can see grants is slightly down, but again, for the reasons we've discussed. And then all other is almost exactly the same. There are no questions. We can move on. Okay, so net income, this gets to what I was talking about earlier. Our overall net income is to the positive. So we are at 333 to the positive year to date. And you can see comparatively from last fiscal year. So last fiscal year was a deficit year. We planned a deficit budget. So you can see how net income last fiscal year at this time was about a negative 9.4 million. And this year we're at a positive 333,000. So that's good news. If there are no questions, you can move on. Okay, so this is the list of our top providers and the amounts that they received in May. So the list doesn't change too significantly. And I believe we did have prior questions on some of the autism providers, and I want to say hospitals. And now as I say that, I'm not sure I ever got you the list of hospitals. So I'll have to circle back on that one. If there are no questions, that should be a wrap.
Thank you, Anya. Are there,
this is just listing providers.
I don't want to talk over the slide.
This is just listing providers, just talks about providers and what they do.
All good. Are there any overall questions for Anya regarding this presentation? Looks like you did a very thorough job, no questions. So I think it's the bottom line that you and Pat will talk about some different ways to present the financial comparisons and bring them back to the board, either at the committee of the whole or next board meeting.
Yep.
Yeah, we'll work together and we'll come up with a way that hopefully makes consistency and makes sense to everybody, how we can manage the way through it. Also at the committee of the whole meeting, as we talked before, we're gonna do some review of components of the budget to make sure everybody has a thorough understanding of it.
Oh, good. Sounds great. Any other questions before we move on? Thank you, Anya.
Okay.
The next, well, you're not going far, are you?
I know. That's why I didn't turn my camera off. I knew it wasn't.
The results of the fiscal year 19 audit.
Yes. So I'm actually going to defer to Patrick on this one. His team takes the lead on our financial audit. So I'm going to let him introduce our auditor and get us started.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anya. Sorry I didn't chime in quicker when you asked me about the prepaid or the about the other assets, and that was prepaids. It include prepaid items that we pay for that's not yet booked or recorded. So they're paid in advance. So, but thank you for the opportunity to present our auditor. Jason Kelly was the audit manager for BDO, and also Doug Havera is the audit partner. And so I want to introduce both Jason Kelly, I believe, is going to be doing the presentation for the BDO audit. We're going to allow him the opportunity to come on now and to introduce himself. But I just wanted to introduce him to the board and to others that's listening, that BDO auditing firm did our audit. Jason Kelly was the person who we worked directly with as the audit manager.
All right, thanks, Patrick. Good evening, everyone. I'm Jason Kelly from BDO, the audit manager, as Patrick said, and I'm going to go over overview of the results of our fiscal year 2019 audit of the financial statements. So we can move on to the next slide, please. This here is our independent auditor's report or opinion on the financial statements. And what this does is it states that we did audit the financial statements. We are independent of Oakland Community Health Network. That management's responsibilities, it lies with management and the board for the fair presentation of the financial statements. And our responsibility as the auditors to express an opinion on those financial statements based on audit tests that we have developed based on our risk assessment and any risks of material misstatement that we may have identified. So we did issue an unmodified opinion, which is a clean opinion, meaning that the financial statements are fairly presented in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. And then under the other matters section, we also are required to look at required supplementary information, which for OCHN includes the management's discussion and analysis portion of the financial statements, and then supplementary information, which includes the combining schedules in the back of the financial statements, along with the schedule of expenditures of federal awards, which we perform audit procedures on as required by the uniform guidance. And then we also, as OCHN is a governmental entity, we're required to report under government auditing standards, which I'll touch on a little later. Next slide, please. So high level here, which Anya had just covered a few of these numbers previously. At the end of fiscal 19, total net position was 46.49 million. Which was approximately a $9.4 million decrease from 9/30/2018. And there was 9.4 million of debt outstanding at September 30th, 2019. And there was approximately $6.45 million in debt repayments made during the prior fiscal year. Next slide, please. Here's a little summarized balance sheet showing, again, total assets of 82 million, total liabilities of 35.5 million, and then the net position of 46.5 million. We can move on, please. And then here we show a summarized income statement, which shows operating revenues of almost 329 million last year, and expenses of 339 million. And then we had non-operating revenues of 750,000 to get to our change in net position of the $9.4 million decrease mentioned earlier. We can move on. This graph here just shows the sources of revenue. So state sources of revenue is 3.9%, other sources 2.7%, local revenue of 3.8%, 2.9% grant revenue, 85.9% federal revenue, which the Medicaid revenue is included in that federal sources pie chart there. And we can move on, please. Here shows a summary of the capital assets up top. So there's $26.9 million of capital assets at the end of the year, which includes the land, equipment, furniture, fixtures, and the buildings of OCHN. And then we show the debt of $9.4 million down at the bottom at the end of fiscal year 2019. And then there, if we move on, there's just some economic condition and outlook that was written by the management of OCHN, included in the MD&A, and that was provided in the full financial report that was provided to the board also. So we can move down one more slide, please. One more, please. Okay, so that was the financial audit. If anybody has any questions regarding the highlights and overview of the financial audit, I could address those now.
I'm not seeing any questions for you, Jason. Oh, Jonathan, of course.
Of course. So question for you, because I know that we came through this with a clean audit. What about controls, sampling on processes, et cetera? Can you give us some insight into how well our organization executes?
So yes, and I'll actually get onto the, under this single audit is where we have our reports on internal control. So I will get to that shortly. But
okay, thank you.
So yes, if we have further questions.
Das has a question for you.
Yeah, but it has to do, can you go back to the land, the assets? I think it's the one before this one. We kind of got to look at the chart. Oh, nope, one more. It's maybe the last one with the numbers on it.
It's probably one slide back yet.
Okay. It's just, I just have a quick question about, oh, nope, not that one. The one yes, this, no. Go back to where you were. I've written down the one. With the revenue, you showed a picture of the revenue sources?
It's two forward.
Yeah. One
yep,
more. There we go.
This one.
Thank you. Yeah, so I just want to understand if it's typical to have the land and the building separated in audits on capital assets. I'm not familiar, that's why I'm just curious.
Yes, and the reason being is land is a non-depreciable asset, so land typically increases in value over time. So we keep land recorded at cost under generally accepted accounting principles, and we don't take any depreciation on the land. And the buildings typically have a useful life between 30 and 50 years, so we have to take a portion of depreciation on the buildings every year.
So, just curious, did we lose land from 2017 to 2018? Because you see how it's the same, and also if land doesn't depreciate, wouldn't it appreciate? Like, wouldn't that number change?
So we don't, under GAAP, we don't show appreciation of land. Unless there was a significant appreciation and there was appraisals done and everything else, and we could, substantiate the revaluing of land. And I don't recall off the top of my head what exactly was sold between 2017, 18. Maybe Anya or Patrick could.
Yep, I believe that was the transition from our old building to our new one. Correct me if I'm wrong, Patrick.
That's correct. We sold a property. In 17, we were still holding the other property. That's why it seems a little higher. And we sold it for $2.7 million.
So I'm just curious, for 2020 with the land, like we did a lot of, and actually part of 2019, we improved the land with parking. Is that considered is parking considered land or building? The parking lot.
Well, this would be the 19 audit, so that wouldn't be a part of this auditing period because this ended as of September 30 of last year.
So Hadass, to specifically answer that question, that project wasn't done until the 2020 year, and because it does have a useful life, the parking lot, it will depreciate, so it would be not included in this land thing.
Got it. Okay, and then from 2018 to 2019, what did we? Let me just see some of these buildings. So what did we lose? We lost some of building. From 18 to 19, it says.
So the building, the building does depreciate over that time.
Depreciated.
Yep.
Okay, I got it. And then when, so obviously our furniture fixtures will go up. Okay, that explains it. Thank you so much.
Other questions before we move on? I think we're all set.
Okay. So as I mentioned earlier, we also are required to do single audit, which is an audit over the federal awards of OCHN, which is required by the federal government and the uniform guidance. We move on, actually 2 slides, please. One more, please. So our first opinion here, this is our auditor's report on internal control over financial reporting and compliance based on an audit performed in accordance with government auditing standards. So we are required to look at the internal control of the organization as we go through our audit. So we look at the controls behind the processes, the controls surrounding various transactions and compliance with laws and regulations under government auditing standards. And I would like to report that we did not report any findings, material weaknesses, or significant deficiencies regarding compliance with government auditing standards this year. And then the next is the, excuse me, independent auditor's report on compliance for each major federal program and the report on the schedule of expenditure of federal awards. So this is the internal control specific to the major federal program, which I will get to a little bit later in a few slides, that we audited this year regarding the federal awards of OCHN. And again, we did not have any findings regarding the controls or compliance with that major federal program for fiscal year 2019. And the schedule of expenditure of federal awards was fairly stated in all material respects in relation to the financial statements as a whole. Next slide, please. So this is the schedule of expenditure of federal awards. And as you can see, there was $7.739 million of total federal expenditures this year. And of that, the block grant, the bottom 2 lines, $5.1 million was for the community grant and the prevention block grant for treatment and substance abuse services. And that was what our major program was that we audited this year in accordance with the uniform guidance. And as I mentioned, we had no findings to report in accordance with that program. And next slide. Actually, 2 more. And then this is our summary of auditors' results. And this just summarizes everything that I've already said, that we had unmodified opinions and we did not report any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies. And then the block grant for prevention and treatment of substance abuse was our major program that we audited in accordance with the uniform guidance this year. So that is all on the single audit. And the audit of the internal controls, if there's any questions regarding that.
I'm not seeing any hands up at this point.
Okay, if we move forward then a couple slides, I have one more, please. So this final document is what we call our audit wrap-up document, and this is required communications that as independent auditors we are required to make to the board at the conclusion of every audit. Did we have a question? I just saw
yes,
a hand.
the DOS.
Actually, so my question was back in the federal, I don't know, she might not have seen me, when you're on page 38, and this might be a question for Anya. So if we could go back to the federal program. One more. One more. Yeah, past that. To the numbers. One more up, please.
I think one more she'll want.
Thank you. So Anya, you know on the top part where we have the U.S. or Jason, if you know, the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Planning Continuum of Care Program. So we have 2 different grants for that, and I was just wondering what the difference is between the 2, because it's the first time I've ever realized we had the Shelter Plus Care Program.
Yeah, so that's, as it mentions, Shelter Plus Care. So we have 2 contracts that we actually don't have them anymore going into 20, I don't believe. Shelter Plus Care was split between two providers. We had it with TTI, Training and Treatment Innovations, and we had one with Community Housing Network. So we had them. I actually think that as of 2020, that is one of the ones that the state has chosen to directly contract with the provider for. Patrick, if I'm wrong, please jump in.
You're correct.
Okay, thank you.
Jonathan?
Thank you. In prior years with our prior auditors, they've traditionally have reached out to some member of the board as part of their process. Did you or any of your team reach out to anyone on our board this year?
Yes, so we would have provided an audit planning communications that should have went to the board, and then my final document that I'm going to go through here is the audit wrap document, which is our second required communication with the board after the completion of the audit.
Thank you. I guess I'm always one step ahead of you. Sorry, I'm
No
an
problem.
ex-auditor.
Hadass, do you have another question?
I'm all set. I think I lowered my hand. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so again, this is our audit wrap-up document. So if we move down to the next slide, the first letter here is stating that this is professional standards require us to communicate with the board regarding matters related to the audit, along with the results of our audit. There's certain required communications that are included in this audit wrap-up document. Next page is just table of contents. So if we move down one more, please. Thank you. So this says that we completed our audit of the financial statements and the federal awards for September 30, 2019, and we conducted our audit in accordance with auditing standards generally accepted in the United States of America and government auditing standards. And then it also states the audit of the financial statements does not relieve management or the board of their responsibilities for the related financial statements. The objective of our audit was to obtain reasonable but not absolute assurance about whether the financial statements are free from material misstatement. We issued an unmodified opinion, as I previously stated. And then all records and information that we requested from the Anya and the accounting staff, Patrick and Eddie, were freely made available to us for inspection, and their cooperation was excellent throughout the audit process. So we really appreciate that from the team. Next page, please. So the results of our audit, accounting practices, policies, and estimates. The authority's significant accounting practices and policies are included in Note 1 to the full financial statements. There was no significant accounting policy changes to significant accounting policies and practices during fiscal year 2019. And then also there was no changes made to any significant estimates or processes included in the financial statements. I will mention back to the accounting policies, there was some new GASBs scheduled to come out for the next fiscal year regarding leases, GASB 87 and a few other GASBs. However, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, there was a new GASB 95 that was released, which extends the required implementation date for several of the upcoming standards. So some of them are still allowed to be adopted early if applicable and if management chooses to, but I just wanted to make it known that there was some extensions by the GASB given out there. And then corrected and uncorrected misstatements. We had no corrected misstatements and no uncorrected misstatements that we identified as a result of our audit. Next slide, please. So again, internal control over financial reporting. So as an audit performed in accordance with government auditing standards, we're required to look at the internal control, and then we need to report on any deficiencies, significant deficiencies, or material weaknesses. And we had no matters to report related to any of those deficiency categories. Next slide, please. And then some of the other required communications, significant changes to the planned audit strategy or significant risks that we initially identified, there were none. Obtain information relevant to the audit, we had no issues. There was no specialized skills or knowledge needed outside of our core engagement team to complete the audit procedures. And we're not aware with any consultations about significant accounting, reporting, auditing, or other opinions received from any other public accountants. Next page, please. We also look at the authorities' related parties, if any, and evaluate proper disclosure and recording of related party transactions. We had no disagreements with management. There was no significant difficulties encountered during the audit, and we had no other matters to report as a result of our audit. And then finally, we request a management representation letter at the end of our audit, which management signs and provides to us, stating that any representations made to us throughout the course of our audit hold true. Next slide, please. And then again, our independence communication, we stated in our engagement letter that we were independent with OCHN, and that held true throughout the whole audit, and we remain independent as independent auditors. And then the next slide, it's just a little blurb on cybersecurity, which seems to be an up and coming thing in our ever advancing technological world. And just a reminder that at BDO, we do have various teams that specialize in cybersecurity and offer those services if it ever is a need of OCHN. And next page, please. And then we just included a little bit of, for consideration of the COVID-19 pandemic and the CARES Act that was passed by legislation. If there's, that you can read, and that's the remaining slides. So that was all that I had, and I will open it up for any final questions.
Okay, I'm going to double check with Hadass. Your hand is still up. Do you have a question? Oh, fixed. Are there any other questions then? Oh, you do? Yes, Hadass?
I don't.
Okay,
I'm trying
great.
to lower it.
For some reason, your hand doesn't want to go away. That's all right. Other questions? Anyone else have a question for Jason regarding the results? Well, I'm not seeing any. I don't want to close the conversation too quickly, but I guess we all like hearing good news.
Okay, well, if no questions, then again, I thank you all for having me tonight, and we appreciate, the help from the staff of OCHN and to make the audit a smooth process. So thank you
Thanks so
again,
much.
and have a good evening.
Appreciate it. Moving on in the agenda, the next item is other business. I'll just do that quick reminder that Thursday, July 30th, which is our study session, scheduled study session at 5, we'll have our opportunity to meet Dana virtually and find out more about what her thoughts are moving us forward, and also an opportunity for us to ask her some questions. Sarah mentioned, I don't know if you want to do it, Sarah, about the fact that soon the selection committee will be regrouping to address outcome goals. And is there any other business anybody would like to bring forward at this time? All right, then we'll move on to our board committee reports, and we'll start with recipient rights. Jonathan?
Thank you. We did not have a July recipient rights meeting as tradition. because it usually falls right around the 4th of July. So we will have one another recipient rights committee meeting that will be on Thursday, August 6th.
Okay, thank you. Citizens Advisory Committee, Malkaya?
Yes, I have a partial report, and I'd like to hold that until next month. I couldn't attend the whole meeting. I had another meeting that I had to go to halfway through the CAC, and Valerie was kind enough to send me the minutes from the meeting, but they were the June minutes and not the July minutes. So I would prefer to give a full report next month if that's okay with the board.
It sounds fine.
Thank you.
All good. And I know, Eric, the Oversight Committee isn't meeting until August. Do you want to confirm that date for us?
Yes, we'll be meeting on August 12th.
Okay, thank you. We'll look forward to your report next month then. Our next item is our second opportunity for public comment. Is there anything from our public?
No, Judy, we did not have any public comment this evening.
Okay, thank you. Now's the director's report, Anya.
Okay. So I just want to say congratulations to the board and to Dana for finalizing this process. We are very excited to have this process ending and have Dana joining us. It's good to have somebody that's already well known within the behavioral health community and respected and known for her work. And so we're really excited to get moving. So this experience for me personally, since this is my last official director's report, has been invaluable. I can't say that I had any idea what to expect and can say that I learned an absolute ton. I will be happy to get back to my numbers and focusing on funding and financial reports, apparently. So I can honestly say, you know, when we started this, we started, I think in November and planned for this to be done by January. And then after that, it seemed like there was COVID, and it was kind of this all hands on deck COVID focus for several months. And what I can say is having been through this, I wouldn't hesitate again, even knowing what I know now with COVID, just because having the staff and the providers and the board and everyone's support through this has been really amazing. One of the things I am most proud of is how this organization and this community came together during this time and really demonstrated why we are the public mental health system and the value we bring to the table, because we didn't for a second even consider, what wasn't people first and wasn't in the best interest of people, keeping people safe and served. And I just can't say enough for the community that this network has within it. And I am very appreciative to have gone through such a scary at times situation and just kind of making decisions on the fly. I think at one point we used the term, we build the plane as we fly it, because we didn't really have a playbook. And I just really appreciate the support from all of the OCHN staff and providers and the board and everybody, just as we kind of navigated through this. So, I just want to say thank you to everybody. Hopefully I made you proud over the last 7 months, and hopefully we are on to a new chapter, and it's going to be a new beginning, and we can all go forward and conquer all of our new annual plan goals. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments for Anya before we move on?
Judy,
It's Sarah.
Oh, go ahead, Sarah. Go ahead, Sarah.
Oops. Oh, I was unmuted myself. Sorry. Thank you, Malkaya. No, I just want to say, Anya, thank you so very much. And when you say you hope you made us proud, I would say beyond proud. This was just this timing with the pandemic and everything. You handled things so well, and it's been a great 7 months, and I appreciate all the hard work and effort that you put in for the organization, for the board, and for those that we serve. So thank you for everything.
Thank you, guys.
Malkaya?
And Anya, I want to let you know too that I really appreciated your leadership during this very, very difficult time. Nobody had any idea what we were facing, and the staff was exemplary. I have no complaints. I haven't heard anything negative about the way that we handled things, the way that things went. I thank God for that. But you just don't know what you have in you until you're tested. So this test really proved to me just how capable the staff is and how quickly we were able to shift and get into a place where we could do what we needed to do. And I'm hoping that there was very little discomfort for those that we're charged to serve. So I want to commend you individually for your leadership. I want to commend the senior leadership team that works with you and each and every person that works at OCHN. You're amazing. Everybody is amazing, and we do what we do, and not looking for accolades for it, but it's good to be able to say to people, job well done. So I really want everyone to know that I appreciate your efforts so much, because we had a Goliath, but we got out there and killed it. It's not over yet. It's a new chapter. Yes, it is. But I just want everyone to know how much I personally thank you for how you stepped up and held it together. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Malkaya.
Judy, it's
Yeah.
Steve. Anya, I also want to congratulate you on really doing a good job. And I really appreciate the difference in communication between the board and you and your team. And I hope a lot of that continues on when Dana takes over. So.
Thanks, Steve.
Other board members? I see Nicole has her hand up.
This is Pat.
Pat.
I didn't raise my hand, sorry.
That's all right.
I kind of want to echo what everybody else has said. I think that being flexible and on top of the key issues as a leader is incredibly important, especially going through turbulent times like we have been doing here. You know, I recall being at General Motors in a leadership position, and when we had 9/11, all hell broke loose, and you know that was a path we had never ever tried to go through before, but we had to be flexible and quick on our feet and go with your best judgment. And when I look at what the leadership team has done here at OCHN, from my perspective, that's exactly what they have done. And thank God, because it could have been much worse. And then you add to it, you look at the financials, we're in decent shape right now compared to where we were earlier in the year, and things have turned around. Anya was very good at projecting, but not over projecting where we would be. And, and then you get the audit saying everything is good. I'm feeling pretty good. It feels good. Welcome Dana to join us, and just look forward to the next few years.
Thanks, Pat.
Other board members?
Yes, this is John. Thank you. I just wanted to say thank you so much for your efforts in stepping up in this role as interim. I know it's been a challenge with some of us and a challenge with the organization, and the market forces out there has not made it an easy time, but you've done an amazing job. So I thank you. And I'm looking forward to being able to focus all of your efforts back on being the financial officer and helping us get through what I think is going to be a very challenging year next year with the state, who's starting to get, I don't know what I'd call it. They're starting to figure out where are they going to get the money from. So it'll be a hard job, but I know you're going to be very capable at helping us get through that. So thank you again. Thanks, for this Jonathan. Past 6 months. Bye.
Thanks.
Other board members? Well, then I'm going to step in. Anya, you have done a remarkable job of making sure we didn't miss a beat in terms of serving people that we value. And I think that there have been so many moving parts, so it would have been very easy to miss something, but you didn't. And your team was remarkable in addressing all the unexpected challenges that came our way. And I know for you, you're going to look forward to a little more free time because I have pestered you enormously with texts, phone calls, emails, you name it. And you're going to have more time to concentrate on being the exceptional CFO that you are. So I thank you so much for helping me figure things out and for being a willing partner. So I really do appreciate it.
Thanks, Judy.
Jonathan, again?
No, I forgot to put my hand down.
Okay. It's great technology, but it's like two parts. Now, Nicole, I saw your name earlier and I was letting the board go first.
Yeah, I'm very sorry, Judy. My hand, I don't know what happened. Buttons must have been pushed. It wasn't right.
Oh, okay. This hand turned out to be something of a mixed blessing, I think. All right. Are there any other comments in support of Anya and her director's report? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on then to board member comments. If you have any additional comments, now's the time. Sheila, I guess we could go through the roll if you'd like.
Sure. Mr. Furman?
Yes, I'd just like to echo people who said before me. Thank you, Anya, for the hand of leadership over these last 7 months. And also, once again, thank you for the tireless work of the search committee as well as the process, including all CHS staff who go on. Thanks, Anya, again for the financial presentation tonight, as well as Patrick. I really heard the positive audit. So great job, everyone. Thank you. That's it for me.
Thank you, Adam.
Dr. Guadalupe?
Yeah, I would just like to say thank you to everyone that presented tonight. And again, thank you to all the staff and leadership team for everything that you are doing. And same to the board members. I think, throughout this search committee process, I have learned a lot about the organization, about each other, and I think the diversity we have of members on the board and the ability to really collaborate and work well together for the purpose of those that we serve is just amazing. And it's just been great to see all this collaboration and everyone working well together. So thank you to everyone. And again, welcome to Dana. And I look forward to working with her moving forward. Thanks.
Ms. Bernard?
I would reiterate what everyone has said. It's been a wonderful meeting, and I look forward to working with Dana. I thank everyone for doing such a great job, and keep staying safe and healthy. And I look forward to continuing working with everyone. Thank you.
Mr. Torres?
Sorry, I just want to, can you guys hear me okay? I'm sorry, I was on mute. I just want to reiterate to everybody too, and Anya, thank you for all the hard work you've done, and the board for collaborating and working together to get the contract and go through this whole extensive process. I think the end result is a good one, and I'm looking forward to the future here. Thank you.
Mr. Landsman?
Try it again. I just want to thank everyone on the staff, the leadership team, done a great job. I know you'll continue to. I welcome Dana into her new role. coming north of 8 Mile into our organization, and I think it'll be a wonderful change for us. It'll be a wonderful change for her. And I just want to say, I know the folks that we serve, it is challenging out there. I understand that. I empathize. It's tough. I know that we will get through all of this with the COVID, and we'll come out better and stronger. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Ms. Namie Dyer.
Yes, I just, want to kind of reiterate what everyone has been saying. Anya, you've been the only leader I've known since I've been on the board, and I really appreciate all the work that you've put into this and have definitely made it, an easy transition for me into this position. So I appreciate everything that you've done, and looking forward to seeing you back in your regular role and how you'll continue to shine doing all of that. Also, thanks to the search committee, all the hard work that you guys have been doing over the last few months. I know it's been a lot, so thank you for everything that you all have done, and I'm really looking forward to meeting and working with Dana, and hopefully we will all continue to be safe and healthy, and maybe at some point be able to see each other in person again.
Mr. Lindemeyer.
I just wanted to recognize the job that Anya has done since she came aboard as the CEO. It's not easy to get such high regard from all of the board members. And for you to be able to do what you did in such a seamless way, you really climbed a mountain. And you should be really proud. And you should pour yourself a beverage of your choice and have a quiet moment and really appreciate what you did, not only for the board, but for our community. The community is going through such a tough time right now for a number of reasons. And you were able to lead the organization through one of the most difficult challenges ever. And that takes a remarkable person, and you should know that. So thank you so much on behalf of all of us.
Thank you, Eric. I would say it's the team I got to work with, so.
Mr. Kemp.
Hard to follow up Eric on that one. No, I don't have anything else to say. Just great meeting, great leadership, and look forward to going forward.
Dr. Todd.
I'm excited to and looking forward to working with Dana and getting to know her. And I wouldn't have thought in the future how much I would miss actually seeing people in person. I would have imagined this would have been high tech, amazing stuff, but I'm sort of joining with Judy, and not that everything goes wrong with my devices, but in person is much better. That's it.
Dr. Hans.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank the search committee for all the hard work that they did and brought us to this point. And I would like to welcome Dana and look forward to working with her and know her better. And I would like especially congratulate and thank Anya. This is the third interim CEO since my appointment to the board, and she has been the longest serving interim CEO under very challenging times, and I can't really say enough about her leadership. I know that it's her team and the whole network that did all the work to make things a little bit easier and smoother for people that we serve. But as we know that leadership counts, and I must congratulate Anya for a job well done. And I wish that she will have some moments of rest and some time with her people that she cares about in her personal life. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Hans.
Ms. Newman?
I think I've said everything that I need to say tonight. It was an excellent meeting. Thank you to all the presenters. And I just really, really appreciate having the opportunity to serve on this board with so many caring and compassionate people. I'm so excited that Dana's coming on board. Like Judy, I wish we had more in person. We understand why we can't do it that way at the present time, but it's still missing that contact, missing my hugs. There's so many people I get hugs from, and I'm hug starved, but we'll get over it. But I'm very, very happy with the outcome with us bringing Data on board. So thank you to everyone that had any part in that, and thank you for an excellent meeting tonight. Thank you, Judy, for being you.
Ms. Summers?
Thank you. I always have to follow Malkia, and that's really an awkward spot. But I think the search has done a lot of things for us. I think we've had more opportunity to share our thoughts and work collaboratively together. And I think that will help us in our move forward with our new CEO, Dana. Welcome again. I look forward to seeing how we can take what we do, which is, I think, pretty terrific, to even higher heights. So from that point of view, I thank you all for being so invested in serving the people of our constituency so well, and stay safe and well, because we're a good team now, and I think we need to be healthy and well so we can continue to do the work that we have underway. Thank you. Are there any other comments before we adjourn? Apparently, we have said all our words for tonight. So if there is nothing further, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.